And hello again. My name's Paul Merca. I'm the publisher of paulmerca.blogspot.com. Once again, thank you for watching this latest video. And before I introduce our guest today, if you enjoyed any of our previous videos, please don't forget to comment by clicking on the envelope at the end of the post or by leaving a comment on our YouTube page. Today, our conversation is with Vancouver native, Skyview High School graduate, 5-time World Championship team member, and 3-time US Olympian in the javelin, Kara Winger, who joins us from her home in Colorado Springs. Kara, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I am happy to be here digitally with you, Paul, you've been such a great supporter of mine for the entirety of my career. So I'm really grateful that you're having me on.
Yeah. Well, first of all, a belated congratulations. You were our website's female athlete of the decade. So it's you and Bernard Legat. You two have been the most consistent over the last decade. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you so much. I was blown away by that honor. I really appreciate it. Like I said on social media, I don't feel old enough to be anything of a decade. So I thank you so much.
Yeah. You've been pretty active on social media the last couple weeks. Seems like I've seen a lot of photos and videos of you training and doing podcasts and doing all sorts of other stuff. What have you been up to?
Well, really just that. I find that in normal times, right? Like if I'm home, it's okay to kind of just scroll through social media and not really interact with it because I'm not home for as many hours a day as I am right now. And during quarantine and lockdown and all that stuff, like I need to be compartmentalizing my day a little bit more. So I'm finding it easier to be actually productive on screen time instead of like just wasting my time using it. So that's been a kind of cool little development in my life. I feel like I can help from home in a more intentional way than just kind of using social media as like a recovery downtime kind of tool. So it's been fun.
Right. Yeah. Now, before the state of Colorado went into a quarantine, and for that matter, the rest of the country, you had mentioned somewhere that before the US Olympic Training Center was shut down, they let you check out some stuff. What'd you end up taking home?
I took as much as I could, and on social media, speaking of that, you'll see even more of that coming up here in my next training block. This is like the 4th week of my first quarantine training block. So we tried to keep it super simple as far as the equipment that I needed. I've mostly used kettlebells, and that's some of the stuff that I swiped from the training center. They were so awesome in those last couple weeks of still having the facility open. The Colorado Springs Olympic and Paralympic Training Center and the USOPC in general was incredibly communicative and careful with athletes. There was disinfecting going on to a degree that I have never seen in a weight room before, like twice a day with what looked like a fog machine going around. We had to take our temperatures twice a day and report as we entered the facility to even be allowed access on like symptoms and stuff like that. So it was just awesome to feel so supported and safe in that environment. And then again, when we were able to take stuff home, for them to say, well, we're not going to use it, so we might as well empower our athletes like in their homes to use the stuff. So just anything and everything that I could grab. There's really neat little tools that I would never even think to equip my home gym with that they have that I just saw and took that have been really useful. So it's been really great.
Now, what's been a typical training week like for you?
So the biggest difference for me is obviously facilities. I don't have access to a track right now to throw on, and I don't have your traditional weight room. So I've been doing mostly kettlebell stuff on my deck and then throwing javelins like in a park near my home. So it's grass throwing. In Colorado, we don't get that much moisture compared to Washington, especially. So the ground and the grass is like pretty dry and solid. And if you have good enough spikes, like you can get a significant amount of speed up and have some good javelin throws. So my training, like the structure of it is the same as it always has been for the last 2 seasons, especially 1 to 2 javelin throwing days per week, 1 to 2 like technical days per week, and then 2 lifting days per week with recovery on Saturdays. So it's the same structure. It just looks a little bit different from home in kind of makeshift MacGyver sort of facilities.
Like what, since we're in quarantine, what would this be like? Would this be the block that you're in? Is that equivalent to say what you would be in December or January? Where were you in the overall training calendar?
It felt like March, the week that everything really shut down was actually the last week of my previous block. So my timing very randomly was perfect for like losing access to all those facilities. It wasn't like 1 week into a new situation that I had to change everything. It was like a really clear starting point for making something look totally different. But honestly, the volume and intensity is like pretty similar to what it would have been without all of this craziness. The difference is that I'm not on a track surface. So to be competition ready, like you need that reaction to the Mondo or to the rubberized surface to know what your body's going to do on a runway in competition. But growing up in Washington, again, like I won my first state title on a grass runway at Lincoln Bowl in Tacoma. Like I feel very uniquely prepared and lucky to be a track and field athlete like in this situation, because if you're a gymnast or a judo athlete or a swimmer, like you don't have what you need to actually practice your sport. And in so many ways I do. So March, April in a normal year would be the time that I'm starting to ramp up to get ready for competition. And the volume and everything right now is the same as that. It's just that I don't have a track to be throwing on. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Now, I guess what in doing the research for this interview, I had absolutely no idea that at the end of 2018 season, you stabbed yourself.
Yeah, I sure did.
Yeah, describe what happened.
Okay, this will be actually nice to do visually because I have only written about it. So I was carving a pumpkin.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the tools that I would normally have because I wasn't at my house. I was at the training center actually. And I had elected to carve this extra pumpkin. It was no one's fault but mine. I want to make that very clear. So I had cut the hole in the top of this pumpkin, and I had like one of the pumpkin carving, like serrated little plastic handled knives, and then a paring knife. So like those were the tools that I had, and I didn't have like pliers or anything like that. So I'd carved the top of the pumpkin open, but I couldn't get it open. Like I couldn't get the lid off the pumpkin. So I was trying to pry the lid off the pumpkin. I had that pumpkin carving knife, like flimsy, not good enough knife in my right hand, and then the more stout, sturdy paring knife in my left hand, and I was trying to do this. So then I was like, this is probably stupid. I shouldn't be doing this. And I kind of released pressure, but on my right hand first. And my left hand and the paring knife just kind of slipped out of the pumpkin lid and stabbed my hand just so quickly and deeply. And it was terrifying. It was really bad. Like just bright white first, and then all the blood. I had to like cut my hand and hold it and find a paper towel and go to sports med immediately. But yeah, no long-term effects, all good, just very scary.
Yeah, was Dana with you when this
No,
happened?
I was all by myself in like a common area at the training center. And I know like the front desk lady, her name is Kathy, she's wonderful. And I just left all my stuff there. Like I didn't even put a jacket on. It was October in Colorado, it's cold outside. And I was just bleeding enough and scared enough that I was like, Kathy, I'll be back. And I just like booked it to sports med and had them look at it right away. So it was pretty funny. And then I went back and cleaned everything up.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I guess so. As the slide says, you know, the 2019 season. You know, that seemed to be the most. Would you say that was perhaps the most successful season that you've had in your professional career?
From a Team USA standpoint, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
I think individually still, like 2010 is my favorite. There's arguments for 2015 as well, but yeah, from a Team USA standpoint, 2019 was super fun.
Yeah. You know, you start off in Germany you finish in Germany to end the first trip, and then to Europe, and then you had 2 Diamond League meets, the last one in London, and you ended up finishing 9th.
Yeah.
And from what I read, it didn't seem like you were in a very good frame of mind after that. I mean, you know, what kind of set you up for that?
What set me up for that failure, or
I mean, you know, what do you attribute, you know, what happened? Just too much pressure on yourself, or?
I mean, I always fall into that trap a little bit. I had opened my Diamond League season at Rome. So I didn't go to Shanghai, which was our first opportunity. And then I went to Rome and did really well. That was my season's best, actually, all the way to Pan Am, 63.11, I think. So that was super fun because I had started in Bergen, Norway, which was just an awesome trip. I spent 10 days with my friend Sigrid and her family, like in her home on this little Norwegian island in Western Norway. It was so fun. And through 60 meters in that first meet, it was 48 degrees and raining at that competition. And I was pretty thrilled to come away with the 60 meter throw and the win. And then Hollow was really positive. And then I was like thrilled to start the Diamond League out that way. So I think I do both, like a combination of that was like overconfidence, like, oh, I've figured it out, like I know how to succeed at Diamond Leagues, and then with that comes like the pressure to do that. So it's a really cyclical, terrible thing that I fall into. Like I've arrived and I can do this, but the key to success is like recognizing what your strengths are and still focusing on them, having like 2 technical cues that are really solid, and not worrying about anything else. Like all you can do is be your best in the moment. And I think at Diamond Leagues, I just tend to romanticize what's going on and just make it too big of a deal. Like I need to calm down in those situations.
Yeah. Now, you know, so you come back home, and then you get ready for nationals. And then, you know, I think I read that when you got to Des Moines, you decided to check out one of these sensory deprivation tanks.
Yeah.
You know, what was, had you done that before?
No, I had never tried it before Des Moines last year.
Now, you know, did someone, what was the process about trying it? You know, especially as close to a national championship?
Well, that was all my idea. I had been gone from home a lot. So like those two, Lausanne and London, I got ninth at both of those Diamond Leagues. Like I was super disappointed.
Yeah.
I had a really good experience in Lucerne, Switzerland, which was just
Right.
after Lausanne. My roommate was actually Kelsey Lee Barber, the world champion from 2019, and the meet director at that competition. It's not a Diamond League, but it's a very high quality, like, especially for javelin. That's where Johannes Vetter threw 94.44 in 2017. So it's a really fun place to go. I threw well, and Kelsey's just awesome. And we got to stay in this gorgeous resort on the lake and all that stuff. So I'd had good experiences, but I'd been alone and frustrated enough. And the place that I stay for training camps in Prague has no Wi-Fi, and there's a Starbucks down the street that has very limited internet. So just like literally nothing to do, but that just means that you want like social media more. And so I was in this very strange place of like feeling all alone, not being able to communicate with people, and just like spiraling with the frustration I was feeling. I also got really sick during that time period. So I was just like stressed about absolutely everything and grasping at straws for like how to fix the problem. So I just didn't feel like I could ever relax. And the only thing I could think of was to like be totally weightless, and remove gravity from the situation and just try one of these sensory deprivation tanks. Because I have athlete friends that have done it and swear by it. And I had a couple extra days in Des Moines because I flew straight there from London, kind of by myself to try and figure out like my mental game before nationals.
Now, I also had, read an interview with you saying that that was the meet that you and Dana had talked about possibly changing your grip.
That was Pan Am's. So
Right.
I stuck with the grip I had been using all season. We changed it going into the 2019 season from what I had always used. So I was still using like the new grip, the American grip. That was my big change for 2019 at nationals. And then after nationals was when I went back to the European grip, which is what I've always used.
Yeah, just for those who aren't familiar with the javelin grip, I don't know if you can demonstrate it.
I have a little tiny javelin. Hang on.
Oh, wow.
It's very cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like his little tiny javelin.
Uh-huh.
So the American grip is your first finger on the end of the grip.
Uh-huh.
And this is what I was using the majority of 2019, like all the way through nationals.
Yep.
New to me, like different from anything I'd ever done. European grip is your middle finger on the grip.
Okay, gotcha.
And then your first finger just kind of sits back here.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. Cool.
American, European.
Okay. All right. Cool. That's awesome. Awesome. Let's see. Then, Pan Am's, the match, and then finally, World Championships. After it seemed like I don't recall you throwing between nationals and Pan Am. So is that on purpose?
Oh yeah, and there was only like a week and a half between
Yeah.
the two, so there wasn't even an opportunity.
Yeah, and then you go. Now, if I remember right, wasn't it a little bit cooler than normal in Lima?
Well, Paul, that was really funny to me that everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, it's cold," because it's the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
In the summer, which is winter in the Southern Hemisphere. Right. So it was cold, but it was winter. So it was like, I don't know, not surprising to me. The surprise, I think, for a lot of people was the lack of like significant heat, even in the indoor venues. So like your best opportunity to be warm was to like shower or wear lots of clothes. Like it was pretty chilly even in the dorms. But yeah, it was cold.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah,
I live in Colorado and I grew up in Washington, so
right,
I was ready.
right. And if I remember right, you just uh you what was your mindset going into that? Because if I remember right, you just basically took the lead from the get-go. Is that correct?
Right. So the reason that I changed my grip in 2019 was to try and control the tip of the javelin better, to make it
Okay.
fly better. And that worked, but I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel the same connection to the implement. Like I couldn't figure out how to move my body like around my arm to make it go with this new grip. So Pan Am's was when I went back to my old grip. All of a sudden I was like, oh, that's how like this connects to this, connects to this, connects to the javelin, and I can make it go. So even just one day of practice with the grip I had always been familiar with gave me so much confidence going into that meet. Like we talked about, I had failed at Diamond League, so I didn't make the Diamond League final. And
Right.
this was my first of 3 remaining competitions of the season. And to only have 3 meets in like 2 months at the end of the year was something that I knew I needed to capitalize on each opportunity. So I just went in wanting to get out of my own way and have a great time. I had a bunch of like sensory deprivation tank sessions in Colorado Springs, like after nationals, before Pan Am's. So I was finally feeling like I was in some sort of calm state. And I just loved being around the teammates that were at Pan Am's. I'd spent all season by myself, and then I had these awesome teammates in Ari and Michael Shuey and Curtis Thompson. And it was just fun. I also had written warm-ups for competition days to be like really regimented, and I've always done that in the past, but had just been really frustrated with like the strictness of that routine on meet day. So at Pan Am's, I started just saying like, I'm going to do whatever feels right to warm up. And I warm up for a long time. So like the volume and intensity is the same, but I just like did what my body needed to do. And I have enough experience with rehab stuff and how my body should feel to throw far to be able to do that. So it was just like a very relaxed, awesome teammate. I know that I have kind of tapped back into this thing that makes me great situation going into Pan Am.
Uh-huh.
Fun. Just wanted to have a great time, and I did.
Uh-huh. And then, I'm sure that, getting the Olympic standard there must have been a pretty big weight off your back.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
then also, just setting yourself up to go to Minsk and then ultimately to Doha. I mean,
Yeah. And the Olympic standard was a huge moment for me because it was my second throw, 64.92. I think I had one other 64-meter throw maybe in that series. But that was also a really neat like maturity moment too, because they read the mark. I was like, Olympic standard. I almost started crying because I was like so happy to have like turned the year around, but also like proven to myself that I have this ability still. Like it's just, you start to worry a
uh-huh.
little bit as an athlete. And but instead of like getting too excited or too emotional about it, like I celebrated for a second and then I was like, all right, we're still in this competition. Like I still need to stay focused. And then I continued to have a phenomenal series. So I was really proud of that, like reining it back in and like using the energy for the rest of the competition too.
Uh-huh. And then, just talk a little bit about Minsk. I mean, if I recall, you got second there, but it kind of felt like, just observing from half a world away, my thinking was, shoot, she's on a roll now.
Well, and I actually won that meet on my last throw. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. That's like Tatiana Kolodovich, the Belarusian. She's wonderful. She doesn't speak very much English, but she's like super supportive somehow and really funny, like in competition. I really enjoy her. And that's her home stadium. So I was really excited to go to the home of one of my favorite competitors.
Yeah.
and have this new opportunity, because I've never been to Belarus and it's a new meet. And I loved that experience. It was super fun and just a different team experience. So I'm glad that you're asking about it, because I feel like people forget about it. And it was super important for me, because again, I did things, I was only there for 4 days. So I got there super late Saturday night, and then competed Monday night. And typically, if I'm jet lagged at a meet, I will only nap once in the day, because I need to be like ready and up and like on the right time zone and stuff like that. And like the day of the match, I was just like, I'm going to do whatever feels right today. Like I've slept as much as I can. My pre-meet training was good. And so I took 3 naps that day, including like at the track when I got there to warm up. I was like, I need to trust myself and trust that my body knows what it's doing, because I've done this a lot of times, but I've never succeeded in this situation to the degree that I want to. So I'm going to try something different and just kind of relax and let it happen. And the fact that it was my last throw in a jet lag state, another Olympic standard 64-63 to win the meet for my team, was just I think if I'd only had Pan Ams going into World Championships, I wouldn't have been as confident. Like I needed this extra reassurance that I was ready to do great things.
Now, did you, from Minsk, did you go back to the States, or did you go to Doha?
Yeah, I went back home. I was home for like 9 days.
And then you got your last training block, and then that's got to be hard, going back, commuting back and forth between Europe and back to the States, and then over to the Middle East.
Yeah, well, and my travel to Minsk was really interesting, because I went Denver to Frankfurt, which is my favorite flight ever. It's like 9 hours and you're in Europe from Colorado. It's great. But then I had a 9-hour layover in Frankfurt before I took like a late night flight to get into Minsk. And that was delayed. So I didn't go to sleep, I think, till like 2 a.m. Sunday. And then we competed Monday night in Minsk. And then home wasn't as bad, like a little bit of a layover, but not too bad. I've flown enough in my life that I finally have lounge access on international flights, which is phenomenal for like both napping, you can shower if you want to, and like having a snack. So I don't mind long layovers when there's that opportunity, but it's a lot of time. And then the bigger challenge was my travel to Doha, which was outrageously long, full of delays and terrible things. But you learn over a lot of years to just let whatever happens happen on a travel day. Like there's a zombie point that I get to that I'm existing. I'll get there when I get there. As long as I get to my gate, like that's all I can do and all I have control over. And that's a good lesson for all of life. Control what you can control and don't worry about the rest. So it's hard, but everyone has to do it. So
Now, you had a solid performance in qualifying, and then talk about the finals, because I was quite honestly pretty impressed. Considering, man, this is the second final you've made, and you just kept plugging away there,
like chipping away. It's something. I'm glad you were impressed by qualifying, because I didn't feel great about qualifying. I wanted to make a splash a little bit earlier than that. And this was the first time ever that the javelin, we've been 2 days in a row. So qualifying is usually 1 day, there's a rest day, and then you have finals. And we were back-to-back days. So I had practiced that. Dana and I had practiced that in those 9 days that I was home between the match and Doha. And it went really well on the second day. So it was cool to have had that experience at home. And it was just practice, but we were like competing, practicing at the same time of day that the competitions were going to be at. So it was like 6 p.m. here, 2 days in a row. And to know that I had more in the tank on the second day than I thought that I would was really helpful in the actual final in Doha.
Yeah.
And when I mentioned that, like, I had that practice of being kind of present enough to say it at Pan Am's, like, I'm gonna, rein it in and contain this emotion and not get too excited to like stay focused throughout a series. I definitely employed that in Doha because my best there, I think, was my 4th round, maybe 5th. And I consciously was like, I'm only in 7th at this point, like going into the last 3 throws. Like I must take it upon myself to improve right now. And to be able to do that physically and capitalize on like the mental realization that I needed to was really cool and made me feel like I've come a long way in this career.
Yeah. All right. It's like, Skyview's finest. It's like, it's kind of hard to believe, that you've been competing since 2001. And, if I recall, your first meet you won, you threw in the JV section, and you beat the mark from the varsity section that day, if I recall. Now,
that happened.
Yeah. Now, just what would 15-year-old Kara ask? What types of questions would 15-year-old Kara be asking you right now about?
I have no idea. Like I try so hard to remember like what my first season as a javelin thrower was like, because I remember state. I remember like being excited to break the Skyview record. I remember a couple different meets that were really fun. The Centennial Invitational in Portland was always fun. But as far as like learning the event and understanding like what went into it, I just really don't have any recollection of like how I figured it out. And I had a really good javelin coach that, knew more about the event than a lot of high school coaches around the country, unfortunately. But I was just along for the ride. Like, it's definitely the way that I got into javelin throwing is definitely the way that I want to approach throwing the javelin still, is to like have some control over my outcome as an individual sport athlete, but also be in an atmosphere that's fun and everyone's supportive of each other, but interested in improving their own skills. And that's just what I love about track still. There's such diversity in it, and there's so many interesting people with so many different skills that you can learn from and be supportive of and develop lifelong friendships with. So that's why I started track, and that's why I continue to do track, because I still feel like such a neat companionship with everybody that's involved.
Now,
I was just along for the ride, and I think that I would be okay with that still. I wasn't looking to be where I am now. I just wanted to improve on my own stuff.
Yeah. Now, I'm looking at the slide of you on after you won the Golden West meet, and then you actually qualified for the Olympic trials. When you got to the Olympic trials that year, did you ever think that about the possibility of competing at the world class level at all, or was this just was this a case of just being along for the ride?
I think being along for the ride. The only meets, like the uniform that I'm wearing in this picture is from the Washington versus Oregon meet. I don't know if they still do that, but and I never won that one, but I like wore this uniform because I liked representing Washington, which I still do. But as far as like the other meets that are possible, like USATF juniors and stuff like that, I did that one, but I never did any like junior Olympic or other kind of developmental meets. So going to Olympic trials was such a big deal, but it was also like something I couldn't quite grasp. And I think my experience there was similar to that idea. Like I was just, like you said, along for the ride. Like, sure, I'll go to Olympic trials and see what that's all about. But I didn't even, I think, in my naivete, like realize what that meant for like which of these women that I'm throwing against are going to go to the actual Olympics. Like it was such a whirlwind that I even got to go. Like, I don't know if you know that story, but it was super last minute that I got in. So I was just there to be there. Sorry, that's Maddie the dog.
Maddie!
Hey, there's a UPS truck here. She's gonna keep barking. I might have to leave the room. Maddie, come here. Hey. Russ, it's the rack. Will you get it? I'm back. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Because, you know, I was, you know,
real life.
You know, I've seen. I actually follow your dog on Instagram.
Yay! So, and she's so funny. Like, she doesn't bark very much, or she didn't for like months when we first got her, because she was so quiet, and like I think she had a rough start to life, so she was just trying to feel out her role in the house, and now she's like, this is my house. I'm really happy about it. It's cute.
Yeah.
So trials in 2004, I hadn't qualified. And then they lowered the standard.
Right.
Like very last minute. And Gary Redaway, he's a coach in Portland that I worked with like twice, called my mom and told her that they lowered the standard, or else like we wouldn't have known. So I was actually coaching at a basketball camp for my high school in Eastern Washington, at Eastern Washington University. And my basketball coach drove me back home in like the morning. My mom and I left to drive to Sacramento like that afternoon. We slept in a hotel in Southern Oregon and then drove the rest of the way to Sacramento like the next day. I took a nap, and then the qualifying round was like that evening.
Wow.
Like that's how fast that happened. So I didn't have any kind of high hopes for the outcome. I was just like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's go to the Olympic trials. And I'm really glad that happened. And I'm also super grateful for my mom for making it happen. Like that was a really big deal to have that experience.
Now, all right. So, you know, I guess before we talk about this, I saw the interview that you had with the NPR affiliate in Colorado. That you know, as we look at this picture of you competing in Eugene at the trials, that you were going to extend your career to hopefully to 2022, and ending with the World Championships there. And then I know you got your MBA a couple years ago. You thought at all about what you're going to do once this ride is over?
No, no, I have. I like my only clear path has ever been javelin, and I'm in a really neat mentorship program through USATF right now that's been super helpful in just kind of opening my eyes to how many possibilities there are. Like I've always known that, but to have people that are professionals and can help me identify the marketable skills that I have built as an athlete has been really helpful. Because people tell you that, they're like, oh, you're hireable as an athlete, but like they don't tell you exactly why. And those people have been really great in trying to help me. But like, yeah, I have an MBA with an accounting concentration, a minor in art and design, and my BS was nutrition, fitness, and health. But none of those communicate with each other. I also love home renovation. I started in interior design at Purdue, and I regret getting out of that program. So the possibilities are endless, and that's always been the problem. But I'm a hard worker, and I can find joy in a lot of different things. So I know that I'll be okay no matter what it is. And I'm okay with a couple different reinventions of whatever career awaits
Uh-huh.
me.
Uh-huh. Now, I guess, just, I'm going to deviate a little bit here. Yes, I'm just was looking through the 2019 world lists, and I noticed it's only you and Ariana in that are inside the top 20, and then there's two more athletes inside the top 100, then 11 between 110 and 200. What do you think needs to be done to get that group closer to you guys? I don't know whether it's with USATF or with the college system or what. What do you think needs to
I
happen?
think you're saying that's where the Americans are in the world list? Okay.
Yeah.
So I really this isn't a dig on anybody. It's not a negative towards anyone in specific or whatever, but coaching in the United States is one of the biggest issues, in my opinion. I didn't know how lucky I was to have coached Rodney Zuderwick as my coach in college. He was not the throws coach. He was the pole vault, multis, hurdles, and javelin coach. And to have somebody that understood movement differently than a rotational throws person and with heavy implements, I think was super important to my development in college. And just him as a human, he's super humble and willing to learn with me. So we both did. He's not a javelin specialist, but he was very good at coaching the javelin because he could see that it was different from the other throwing events. And I'm not saying that it's special. I'm just saying it requires different kinds of training than throws coaches are going to train. And that's where all of the expertise lies in the United States, is in the heavy throws. And it's just different. Javelin is just different. I'm actually really excited. I'm doing an Instagram live with Dana, my coach, Dana Lyon, and Ryan Whiting tonight. So he's started his own training group in Phoenix, Arizona, Desert High Performance. And he's obviously very proficient in the heavy throws, so that's primarily who he coaches. But he and Dana have had a lot of conversations about helping each other coach the different events. And if that kind of communication and understanding can happen, I get really excited about the development of talent in the javelin in the United States. It's also, I think, international understanding. Other events do seem to communicate with different countries. And I know that has definitely happened in the javelin, but it seems like a generational thing. Older javelin throwers are more okay with having those conversations. And the girls that are, below 50 or below 20 or whatever on that list, just haven't either financially or seen it as a priority enough, taken the opportunity to go to Europe and learn from people that have more tradition in the javelin. Because that's been a super fun part of my career, to interact with other people.
Yeah. Now, I guess now that, assuming we get out of quarantine at some point, how many weeks would you need to get ready to start competing? And what
go ahead. What's the second part?
Specifically would you need to work on? Obviously, this getting on a track runway is one.
I would say a month of solid practice on a runway, on a track, and I'd be ready. Maybe even 2 weeks. I've done. The home workouts are in some ways even more challenging than in regular facilities, as just physically. The the movements are slightly different. I am doing a lot more like yoga and recovery kinds of workout things like every day, because I don't have access to a massage or any kind of sports med for those things. So I feel really fit. I don't necessarily feel amazing technically, but better than I maybe was last year. So just having that reaction from a track surface, I think I could be ready in a couple weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
Keep
And
going
then
the way that I am. Yeah.
Now, how many weeks, how many meets would you think you'd need to go, before going to nationals? I know that World Athletics has said that assuming everything is all hunky-dory, I think the first or second full weekend in August is the dedicated spot for nationals all over the world. Maybe 2 or 3 meets to get ready for nationals,
I
assuming
mean, I've had other weird years, right? Like my shoulder got torn in 2015, so I only had one competition before Olympic trials in 2016.
Man, I forgot about
and yeah, and like that's, I mean, when you talk about the world list, I never want to be, big-headed and all that stuff, but like as far as talent in the United States or like depth in the javelin, I always want to win nationals, but at the same time, I feel fairly confident going into every nationals. Like even if I am not quite ready, like I feel like I've been there enough and I'm competitive enough still, and I am comfortable in that situation that I can do well regardless of what the lead up has been. I would love for that to change and have a lot more threat like going into a national championship. But in the past, I've been able to, not have that many meets going in because I have the standard in an Olympic year and feel pretty confident based on past experience. But yeah,
right.
a couple of weeks leading in and I'd be okay.
Right.
And I mean, maybe we won't have that this year. So maybe everybody's first competition is nationals, and then it's a level playing field, and it looks different than it ever has before, which is what 2020 is. So.
Right. Now, since you're not going to be able to use any marks from now until December 1st for world ranking or for that matter, Olympic qualifying. Would it, assuming all the travel bans are lifted, would you feel comfortable going overseas to compete in either the Diamond League or whatever meets are available?
I don't know if I can answer that now. I'm not really sure. Since I've committed myself to 2021 and 2022, right?
Yeah.
Barring injury and all that stuff, I might be happy to embrace more rest in 2020 and not worry about travel and competition. And I mean, it would financially save me money to not pay for international travel and all that stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I'm really enjoying home training right now. I'm really enjoying being with Russ and Maddie every day. Because at this point in the year, and really all year, every year, we're kind of away from each other a lot. So it's actually been really nice to be together. And I would really continue to embrace that all summer if that's what this year turned into. So I can't really decide right now.
Yeah. And then do you have any sponsorship obligations for where you're required to compete?
As far as I can remember with the contracts, no. And I mean, there's a benefit of not being a shoe sponsored athlete at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, New York Athletic Club has been very wonderful in their support since just after nationals last year. And then Honey Stinger is my other significant sponsor with snack foods, and I love them. They're a Colorado company and still like shipping out snacks and stuff like that. But they're also very focused on the outdoors. So any outdoor activity that I'm doing, I feel really good about still supporting them and representing them in the outdoor space, you know, with social distancing parameters. And we haven't done any of that yet. But like that part of my life is really neat that it coincides with Honey Stinger too, because I have tons of like throwback photos and other hikes that I've taken their products on. So I feel really good about the sponsorship relationships I have right now.
You know, just if you know, just thinking about it, anything stand out? You know, you besides, you know, obviously the American record in 2010. You know, anything stand out for you as if you in looking back at the entirety of your almost 20 years of throwing the javelin?
I can't believe that I spent so many years kind of in between 2010 and 2018, really like being frustrated. And I know there were surgeries, and I know that I kind of had to make my way back from different injuries, but I've had so much fun being Dana Lyon and Jamie Meyer's athlete in the last 2 seasons. And I cannot believe that, like I was really excited for 2020 Olympics, yes, etc. But 64.92 and like 64.63 last year felt pretty easy. And I know that that's not true. Like that doesn't tell the whole story, but I was getting very excited to finally maybe PR after 10 years, like 2010 to 2020. Like that's the last time I threw a personal best. And I know that it's coming. So as far as like postponement and all that stuff, like that's my biggest potential disappointment, that like I feel physically like I'm finally ready to maybe break the American record again. And maybe I won't get that opportunity this year, but I'm used to waiting. So yeah. I really want to focus on 2018 and 2019 because it's just such a blast to represent Dana and Jamie, because they're my very good friends and I get to have input, and it's super fun to be in meets with them. The first time Dana traveled with me was to the Diamond League final in 2018 internationally. I got third. I threw 64.75, which is still a European PR. And I had always failed at the Diamond League final. So just the fact that like she was present made such a huge difference. And that meant that meet instantly became one of my favorites of all time. It was awesome.
Now, just as we come through the last couple of slides,
there you go.
Any regrets or any thing you wish you could have a do-over?
Like I said, I maybe could have gotten into a new coaching situation a little bit earlier, but I wouldn't have had Dana as an option before she became my coach. So like it kind of couldn't have happened any other way. And I think the only thing that would have happened was I would have been coaching myself if I stepped away from my old technical coach earlier than that, but that wouldn't have worked out very well either. So yeah. Everything kind of built the way that it was supposed to. And the biggest regret I have is that I haven't PR'd in 10 years.
All right. Kara, thank you very much for taking the time out from your busy schedule to talk to us. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and by the way, before we wrap things up, once again, folks, if we'd like to thank you for watching this latest video. If you've enjoyed any of our previous videos, please don't forget to comment by clicking on the envelope at the end of the post or by leaving a comment on our YouTube page. Once again, Kara, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I thank you so much. It's always so great to be supported by you. I love
All
watching
right, yep. And for folks, one last thing before we go, you can follow Kara on social media at Kara Throws Jav or karawinger.com. Once again, thank you. Thank you for stopping by today, and hope to see you soon. Take care.
Thanks.
Let's see.